All right, so let's get into this now with the first of our three guests this week. We'll start in Paris at the COP21 venue with Jennifer Morgan. She's director of the climate program at the World Resources Institute. Jennifer, the thing I'm asking all my guests this week is, why Paris? Why is it in the lead up to this event and as it's happening now, there seems to be so much more hope for a deal and promise, I guess, and a push than there has been more, I think, than at other conferences. I don't think the situation's changed that much in the last year. What's your view on this?
Well, I think there's a bigger push for a range of reasons. I think that the economics are quite clear, and that basically the fact that renewable energy prices are so low is giving additional emphasis to things being more possible and more hopeful. I think as well that the politics are lining up, where you have the US and China cooperating. You have other countries coming together, making it very clear that they want a new universal climate agreement. And I think these moments just make that happen. It's not every day you get 150 heads of state together. And that creates a dynamic and hope, I think, that they can come together and unify.
So then tell me about the passage that people and delegates will take, because it's a 2-week process, if you like, these sorts of conferences, and it's usually only on the last day that something is actually done. If we're going to get there, how are we going to get there, and who's going to have to make the concessions?
Well, I think we're going to get there by countries coming together around a collective vision and details, frankly, about what's in it for them. So I think the developed countries need to come forward and continue to come forward with clear packages for support for the most vulnerable countries, and showing that they're willing to continue to take the lead while developing countries come forward and signify that they understand we're in a new world. We need a common universal agreement with differences around who has to do how much, but the two of them coming together on that level. That needs to move quickly on the ministerial level. And they need to have clear options by the end of this week.
Now, you use the phrase there, what's in it for them, and I think that is a crucial sticking point really every time, because all countries are instinctively going to look out for their own interests. But from what you're saying, it seems like the people there are realizing there is a greater need above their own. Am I reading that correctly?
I think it's both. I think they realize that it is in their own interest to act on climate change, because there's multiple benefits that come from acting on climate change, and to avoid the costs of the risks. And they see that alone they can't solve this problem. The United States alone can't solve climate change, nor can China, and certainly the island nations can't. So both national interest and collective interests, I think, are lining up.
Okay. Let me look at it from the perspective of the big countries, not necessarily taking their side, but playing devil's advocate. They will be looking at this and looking at the smaller countries, the Kiribatis and the Bangladeshis and those sorts of places, and thinking, well, they need help. They're going to want financial assistance from us, but at the same time, we've got to bear the cost of bringing down our emissions and coming up with energy alternatives. It all seems to fall in the big countries' court. Again, not saying that's wrong or right, but we've got to talk concessions there.
Well, I think all the major economies do need to do more. That's quite clear. And I think where you are seeing they need to agree to have an agreement that sends clear signals to accelerate this pace of change, and particularly for the developed countries, that they need to work with these very poor countries to support them in dealing with the impacts. So, and on the other side, I think those island nations really, they have to agree that they're going to go into something that won't necessarily, be everything that they want it to be. That's pretty hard for those countries as well.
Final thought from you, Jennifer, and that is on these words which we hear over and over again, legally binding. This is apparently what we want. We want something that is legally binding, but I keep thinking, who is going to bind it? Who is the enforcer? Who is the binder, if I can put it that way?
Well, legally binding agreement, I think that's where we're heading, and who would oversee it? That's what they're negotiating. So inside, there would likely be a set of binding commitments to, for example, have to report and be verified what you're doing, and there would be some kind of implementation committee that would check whether countries are meeting the commitments that they've signed up to. That's all in the talks right now, and hopefully they can have that component included as well.
Jennifer Morgan from the World Resources Institute joining us from Paris. We thank you for your time.
Sure thing.